have to.
All right, everyone. So this is week 8's discussion on disciplinary actions. So we are putting ourselves in the shoes of a clinical supervisor. And it says, imagine that you have a student that has poor record keeping. They are logging their time each day. They aren't logging their time each day. They let patient requisition papers stack up in their binder, and they have been tardy a few times so far. With those points in mind, discuss the following as a group. And so it says, according to the policy and procedures, what would the necessary steps be to take with this student? And why is it important that students be held accountable for good record keeping in the healthcare field? So does anyone want to start with that being said?
Sure. I think the first step there would have to be a meeting between the clinical coordinator, the clinical supervisor, the clinical, how do you say it, preceptor, and the student, and talk about what happened. It's also like a counseling session. And in the P&P, it says possibly the director would be involved too. And then I think what happens next is there would be a written student conference form. And then there would be a PIP, a performance improvement plan put in place. And does anyone else want to continue? And then, so what my understanding was that if the student didn't change their performance, then that could eventually lead to their dismissal after all of those steps.
So it's like steps, yeah.
Oh no, what happened? There you go.
Yeah, because it does says that excessive absences, like or tardiness could result in this dismissal for the program. So, and it says like more than 2 occurrence. So like if it says there that missing for a couple times, that means he's, like you said, there should be like a conference and a meeting and follow up with him.
Right.
Or a dismissal.
And then also missing your records. It's really important to keep the records current. And that could, obviously lead to a student conference because you're not keeping up your end of record keeping.
It's not like I'm trying to advocate and save the student's life, but then there's also the other side too. Like you were saying, just like a counseling. We need to understand what happened. Like, is there something in the family? Why they're tardy? Is there something that's distracting them at home that's preventing them from doing that? Or is there something in the clinic that is are they having like issues with their with the staff, with their clinical preceptor, or something that is affecting them? So I'm not necessarily trying to vouch saying, hey, yeah, it's okay to be tardy, but there's also a reason. I know that Professor Steele and Professor Fonseca did say, hey, you know what, communicate as much as you guys can, because if we don't know, then it's fair. They're just going to throw the book at you, and that makes sense. But if something is spoken about, hey, like this is what's happening, like I can't make it because of this, or life changed and this happened. So it's good to also understand. But like Kendra was saying, at some point, we've got to understand that if we fall in those shoes, there is like a procedure that will occur. And though even though the procedure is pretty strict, it sounds like there is leadway, for improvement. You kind of fall off the wagon a little bit, and you have the opportunity to, hey, stay back on it, like and see on the course. The course is pretty demanding, the program is pretty demanding, but looks like there's wiggle room for, hey, like kind of shape up and get back on the horse.
Right.
I appreciated stating that they would have a meeting first, because I think before reading the policy and procedure, I kind of just assumed it would be a dismissal of the program right away. But I think the only thing that said it would cause a dismissal is if it was an occurring thing or if there was falsification of records. So I appreciate that they talked to you first before just.
They really just want like an idea, because like they could be thinking anything, like, oh, this person doesn't care, like they're wasting their time. So it's like really important for like communication on everyone's part.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that is important, and that is great that they do that, because who knows, a student can be going through a lot. So it is important, like you said, Felipe, like communication is important. And like with
Mhm.
other policy and procedures, like calling your preceptor ahead of time or clinical supervisor if you're going to be late, and like doing that within like a reasonable amount of time before your shift too. So just like communication and like there definitely are steps that you can take for them to see that you are trying, not just
Right.
showing up late. In this situation in particular, though, the whole stacking of requisition forms and tardiness and all of that together is not so great.
Right.
It says in our question, why is it important in the healthcare field to keep good record keeping? Why is it important that students be held accountable for good record keeping?
I think it's just good practice for when we're actually professionals in the field. We're going to have to take really good records so we keep track of patients' radiation dosages, just to get accredited. Backtracking from being a professional, we need a certain amount of hours to get accredited. And then I was kind of curious about the patient requisition forms. Like, to me, I'm wondering if there's some sensitive patient information on it. And it doesn't seem, I don't think we should ever have a stacking of them in our notebooks because it could be a possible HIPAA violation if we lose them. I think we're supposed to dispose of them on site there's a certain protocol for disposing of them.
Yeah, I was wondering too if they still even did physical requisition forms, or is it all online?
Right.
There's a lot of
Right.
paper ones.
There's a lot of paper ones still. And then
Like,
for a patient to be keeping them in
I
their pocket,
scan
if
like
that's what it
probably
means on our situation.
the other thing too, like that I've run into, at least here at Sansom, is a lot of patients will need, like, we're going to be X-ray techs. We'll need an X-ray before they can continue to an MRI or a CT scan. So I think, at least from what I've seen, the importance of good record keeping. It's this example says that they aren't logging in the time each day, or they're keeping poor record keeping. So they're maybe just not entering that they did an exam on their binder, but who knows if they're just not entering in the system and uploading the images. Because if the patient, is falling behind on, oh, we haven't received this image, you haven't done this X-ray, it'll delay patient care, because
Mhm.
a lot of the staff, the providers, the doctors will, depend on, hey, us obtaining a good image, but also, good record keeping, and enter the information, And I think,
Right.
if I
Absolutely.
read correctly, if some of the doctors don't get to see the patient directly, they also rely on us to, hey, it looks like we've noticed this, or making annotations about what we notice on the patient, if there's swelling, or if there's any sort of other indicators that may assist the doctor, with a better diagnosis. I know we're not part of the diagnosis
Right.
portion of it, but at least making notes of anything we can observe, I think.
Right. It's almost basically impossible for a doctor to make a really complete diagnosis unless they have all of their information
Yeah.
there in front of them.
I agree with Kendra that it's good practice too, because once we are working, I feel like there's probably going to be like stronger disciplinary action if we do make a mistake or do something, we don't log something, because it could cause serious problems for not only the patient, but also our whatever establishment we're working at.
Mhm. Right. It could actually lead to a misdiagnosis, possibly, and liability.
Also, keeping track of our records and stuff, it shows um like good, obviously we were representing SBCC when we go to these sites, so I think showing professionalism with good record keeping is good also, so that the program can continue to practice at these places so that we come across as a trustworthy program.
Right. It's a very good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Representation. It's like that's why we don't want to be tardy. Sorry if my dog's barking.
Yeah.
But yeah, just representing our program is important.
You know what I was gonna ask you guys? I think the book says that we've got to, like, because the excerpt here said that, log their time each day, so they're not doing that. I think we have to log our time like every day. We have to get a signature from the tech like every day. So like, can you imagine if we miss like a week's or a month's or like 2-3 weeks, and we're working with so many different techs, we can't just like make up a text like, oh, here, you sign it, you sign it. I was like, how do you know I was working with you? Like maybe
Right.
that could be a big one too. Like,
Right. We would definitely, yeah, we'd have to repeat our hours because otherwise it would fall into the making things up category, right?
Right.
falsification of records. Yeah. So what if, oh yeah, I guess they can get pretty serious pretty quick.
Yeah, and where it says in the policies, accuracy of clinical records are essential for maintaining accreditation. So the accuracy. is
Right. We
definitely
have to get those hours.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything they want to say on this?
No, I was gonna say what Felipe exactly said. I was like, I was ready to say it, and then Felipe said it
Sorry.
about logging in, because I was like, I read about the that they had to sign when you go in and when you go out on the clinicals, and I was like, well, that I think that's what they want to talk about it. But then Felipe said it.
Yeah, and then we upload them like monthly, so like we have to be on it all the time.
Mhm.
What I also like about being tardy is like, obviously you have to call them 30 minutes early, but it's good that you can replace that time and stay a little bit longer so you can finish your hours. Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's cool,
That is really nice because things happen with traffic.
Mhm.
And we always go, oh, I should have left half hour extra earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or was there anything else that stood out in the reading this week for the policies that anyone wanted to bring up? I guess it was more so like uploading, putting in your time, your attendance, injury on the job site.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that for me, my clinical side is in Arroyo Grande, and I think the closest, student emergency clinic is in Lompoc.
Oh,
So,
wow, yeah.
but then it also said that if you can't get to that, then just go to the emergency room. So,
And then there's steps to go through with that, even
right,
because
right.
but it's nice. It's there.
Mhm.
It's like a simple something. If we ever do need it, hopefully we never do, because that's a lot of steps to remember. Hold on.
I know. Let's hope we're not seriously injured, right? I was thinking like maybe I should pre-fill my name on those forms just in case. Put my student ID number in it just in case.
That is a good point. That's it.
Anything else anyone wants to add before we close our discussion? No? Okay, so I think we're all set. We're good.
Thank you.